Thanks for tuning in to 101.3 BKMG The Farce, coming to you live from separate places, pre-recorded. Now presenting The Bane and Mickey Show. Welcome to the podcast.
The podcast of pods.
Yay! With us we have a very special guest, one Mr. Jordan Wilson.
Jordan Wilson.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, hello. Thank you for joining us.
I feel
Jordan
very
is,
honored to be here, actually.
Oh,
Good.
yeah. Jordan is
I've been looking forward to this for like the last few weeks. Ever since you brought it up
Yes.
to me, I was like, oh, yes.
Yes, we needed to bring in an expert.
And someone who really likes Spider-Man, because we're going to be talking about
Spider-Man.
Into the Spiderverse.
Into the Spiderverse. We brought Jordan in today. He's a good friend and a film buddy from school.
Yep.
We make projects and we talk about Spider-Man all the time. So,
The first animated movie to take the title away from Disney in, I think it was 11 years.
dang. Jordan, how many times have you seen this movie?
At a guess.
Maybe 4 or 5 times,
Okay.
probably. Enough to have an opinion on it.
That's less than I would have guessed.
It is. Yeah, it is.
I like Spider-Man, but I'm not so obsessed that I watch it like daily. Now,
I
if you
mean,
want to
I've
talk about Spider-Man
probably seen
3,
it 4 or 5 times on Netflix. So
if you want to talk about Spider-Man 3, I could tell you I've seen it probably like 15 or so times.
So you really like the third one?
No, it's terrible. I watched it a lot when it came out because I really liked it and thought it was a good movie at the time.
but that's all you
That's
had to work off of, you know.
Well, yeah. Well, because I remember at least for Spider-Man 3, I was like 8 years old. And I was so hyped for it. I was like, oh my God, we're seeing the black suit on screen for the first time. And so it was just, I was like, I have to watch it. And I watched it over and over again. And then as the years went on, I was like, this really sucks.
It's all about that angsty hair flip, you know. That's what drives the film.
It's
Yeah.
true. It's a lot of
Angsty hair.
angst and dancing,
Well,
which are
Jordan,
referenced in this movie.
Jordan,
Oh my
we
God, that's right.
usually-
It did. I forgot about that.
Does.
Actually.
Mhm.
We usually start off our podcast with the question of, have you seen anything good recently?
Hannah and I actually just finished Bly Manor like
Oh.
5 minutes ago. That's why I was a little late getting here. I was like, okay,
So
we have
you
10
weren't
minutes.
in
I need
class.
to finish this. No, I was. We finished class at 2 o'clock or at like 1 o'clock. We had an hour to kill. So we're like,
Oh,
we have
okay.
1 episode left. Let's just bust it out. 'Cause we
Okay,
were hooked
okay.
on it. Yeah. So, I mean,
get
I've
that.
seen that. That's pretty much the only thing I've really seen as of lately, though. I watched Hocus Pocus the other day.
Oh my God, I
Good,
also just watched
good.
Hocus Pocus for the first time. I feel like there was a weird emphasis on like the kid being a virgin.
Yes, we made jokes about that the whole time. We were
Well,
like,
you gotta
why
get
is
the
this just
virgin
a recurring
sacrifice, right?
joke?
It wasn't even a
Yeah.
sacrifice. He just had to light a candle, but they brought
I
it
know.
up like 5 times, and they're not going to pay it off because it's a kids movie. So like he's not going to bang this girl, who kind of looked like Hilary Swank.
Oh my gosh. That's fair. Jordan, did you watch Hill House?
Yes, I watched Hill House last year.
I started watching that because I finally am getting around to it. Because I was like, I wanted to watch Bly Manor, and I was like, maybe I should
Well,
actually watch Hill House. They're not
they're
connected, I
handling
know
it-
that.
Yeah, they're handling it kind of like an anthology. Like,
Yeah, well, it's
More
based on
so.
it's based on the stories, some authors' stories, but
I
but yeah,
definitely think Bly Manor was better.
okay.
It
Good
did.
to
It
know.
wasn't like as scary, I would say, as Hill House, but it had a much better story.
Oh,
Story's all that matters.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe not always, depending on what it is, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Like,
fair.
I guess if you're doing Spider-Verse, but it was just like 2 hours of animatics, probably not as good.
Yeah.
Probably not as good.
Probably not as good. Gavin, what have you seen recently?
I finished Gravity Falls, which was good, and then I pretty much have just been watching Bake Off
Nice,
on
nice.
Netflix, and I hate having to wait. Oh, and I watched How to Train Your Dragon again. I haven't seen that in a few years.
It's a good one. I need to
Also
watch
a really
the
good
third
animated
one.
movie.
Fourth.
I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the other two.
How many are there now? I
don't
remember the
know.
first one
3.
coming out, and that
I
was
think
it.
I think there's 3, but they also have a little TV show.
They have like 3
thing.
movies, 2 shows, and a couple spin-off minis things.
It's like they're turning it into The Walking Dead. How many
I know.
spin-offs and movies can we make?
Yeah, but
I
it's better.
mean-
So, and has dragons.
Oh,
That's like saying Reign of Fire is a good movie because it has dragons.
I mean, it's better than a movie that doesn't have dragons.
Okay, but How to
probably.
Train Your Dragon, the first one, is actually really good, and the score is amazing.
That's
Yes.
fair. I'll give you that.
But
I'm just saying that like dragons are better than zombies.
Okay,
That
I'll
was-
agree with
that
you
was
there.
my main
That's
point.
very true.
Is that dragons are better than zombies. So, I'll watch unlimited dragon content, but not unlimited zombie content.
so you'd rather watch Game of Thrones over and over and over?
I don't know if I'd want to watch it over and over anymore.
Fair.
Yeah.
Speaking of zombies,
What have you been watching?
I've been watching The Walking Dead because I never watched season 9 or season 10 because school and also, I mean, the series just went.
And
But then they
quality?
finally released the season 10 finale, so I was like, I guess I should probably catch up and watch, which I actually have enjoyed both of them so far. Just because it's a little bit more in the future. Well, I don't know. It's good, and I don't know. But also, they just released World Beyond, so gotta watch World Beyond. And I think
What is even
Fear
happening
has
in
a
The
new
Walking
season
Dead
too.
right now?
Well, The Walking Dead finished. It's over.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, it's got one more
And-
season. The new season just finished, and they're doing one more. They're getting
And-
11.
And then they just released The Walking Dead World Beyond, which is in a different place, and I think in future year, like it's connected to season 10, where it's like 5 or 6 years in the future. Yeah, they're basically just fighting the Skinwalkers, trying to find Rick and Maggie, and trying not to kill each other. I also watched this interesting, weird movie called "I'm Just Fucking with You." It's a Hulu original, and it's like a dark comedy slasher thing. It's interesting. It's funny. It has its moments, but it's like also so totally random.
Random.
I told Gavin it's a Jack film. I swear he secretly made this movie.
It sounds like a Jack film from the title.
It's basically basically this guy and his sister are staying at a motel, but then the motel like owner likes to pull pranks, and then it turns out he's also like a fucking psychopath, and so he's like killing everyone. It's a lot, and then he's always like, "Ha ha ha! It was just a joke, I swear." But it wasn't, because people are dead. It's interesting. It's not for everyone, but whatever.
Alright.
If you're bored and you need something to watch.
I do now. So,
I'm a little intrigued.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Spider-Verse.
Let's talk about the thing we're all here for.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, let's start off on the positives, because that's always a good place to start. So, Jordan, what do you like about this movie?
I really like, I know we should probably think more about the animation of it, but I really like the story of the film and how
It has a great script.
Yeah, I really like how it's not doing the typical Peter Parker storyline, because that's been done. I don't know how many times now.
That's
6,
even
7 times just on
A
the live
joke,
screen.
you know?
even.
Yeah,
Something like
that's the joke of the film too. Is
Yeah.
they're always just like, ha, ha, and guess what? It's another one.
And
Right.
I really like that they decided to go with Miles Morales' story, because he's always
Mhm.
been like a fan favorite of the comics. It's like there's numerous people who have taken on the mantle of Spider-Man, but Miles is kind of the one that really, like, I guess, broke into pop culture more than most of them, because
Mhm.
he's a Black Latino, maybe a Black Hispanic.
He's half black, half Hispanic.
Hispanic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he black, half Hispanic, and I think a lot of people really connected with that, because it's not just another white guy. It's not just a white
Yeah.
woman. It's somebody of color who's
It's a great
going out there.
representation.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's somebody who's saying, or somebody who's coming from a different culture and different perspective than we've typically seen.
Right. And I think a lot of people, unless you read the comics or you're a heavy Spider-Man comic fan, you don't know about Miles, and you don't know about all of these other varying, like Amazing Spider-Man versus Ultimate Spider-Man, and then Miles and
Spectacular
Gwen.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. So you don't really know about it, but then to be able to bring that into a larger audience, I think is awesome, especially for that representation and just expanding the comic book world.
And I think in terms of like story beats, I feel like one of the things that kind of works with it is one of the things that worked with the Lego Batman movie is they sort of just like play on the fact that they've been doing this for a long time and are
Yes.
sort of able to both mock and tell a different story with this character that we all have seen for
Yeah.
years and years and years.
A self-aware sort of
Hmm.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love, I mean, that's, yeah, that's one of the satires that they just play in the film is like, okay, here we go again with the origin that we all know.
But it also just has like a lot of heart, which is really cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea that it's a coming of age story, obviously, about,
Mhm.
Miles becoming Spider-Man, but also just about him like growing up as a kid.
Hmm.
And I don't know why, but that really kind of resonated with me. He's a kid. I don't know if they ever said his actual age in the film, but
He's
like
in middle school.
in the
I'm
I
pretty
comics, he's
sure.
like
know
13, I think.
in the
No,
comics, I know in the comics he's like 13, but I think in the movie he's maybe like 14 or 15 at the
yeah,
most.
but they mentioned
Yeah.
that he's in middle school. Like that's the school he's going to. Is
Oh,
like
then he might be
middle
13.
school.
I
So
thought it
it's
was.
13, 14.
I
Who
don't
knows?
remember.
I
I
thought.
don't know. I don't think
Uh,
they ever explicitly said his age in the film.
Yeah, I do like that though too, especially, and I mean that's something we got with like the Tom Holland Spider-Man 2 is that they're actually playing into how young these characters are when this happens to them initially, is that they're they're not 30, they're freaking teenagers
mhm.
doing this thing, trying to deal with adolescence, but then also at the same time you're
Superhero stuff.
you have superpowers. So, which that also brings up the whole when he wakes up the next day and he's like, "Oh, it's just puberty."
It's just puberty. I looked it up. He's 14
Okay.
in the movie.
So yeah, he's about the same age as he is in the comics then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's just puberty. I don't
I
think you know what
like
puberty is.
Yeah, you don't know what that is. You don't want to know what that is, Miles.
No, you don't. You thought that was puberty. Ooh.
I mean, I've been through puberty, but I'm done.
Are you though?
But yeah, no, I think the
Never done.
script is was really well done. Just even not just in an overall story sense, but even there's so many like great little like one-liners and moments.
Oh yes.
They really play it well.
Well,
then-
and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gavin.
well, I just kind of like how they had the two Peter Parkers. Like they had sort of the Chris Pine Peter Parker that we're all sort of used to. The
Mm-hmm.
still kind of new, having a great time. Peter Parker, but then they brought in like a Peter Parker with actual like older problems, which kind of hit more with the older audience, which I think is really cool. Kind of a more like relatable and realistic in some ways Spider-Man, who's been doing it for a really long time. They talk about like almost like the Tobey Maguire one.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, what
Yeah.
were you saying, Jordan?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, going back to kind of what Kendall was saying about, the having like Tom Holland, somebody who's a little more close to the actual age that Spider-Man is supposed to be. I really like what they did, not just with Tom Holland, but also with this movie as well as saying, because it's like Spider-Man's a character who's always been, somebody that people can relate to. Because, you read a Superman comic, you read a Batman comic, like, yeah, they have characteristics that you can relate to. Like Batman, he's a very isolated, lone character. People can relate to that. But I think why a lot of people gravitate more towards Spider-Man is because comics are typically made for, younger audiences, or at least they originally were. And I think that's why a lot of people like Spider-Man is because a 15-year-old could read a comic and be like, hey, he's 15, I'm 15. I understand a lot of the things that he's going through. He's
Mhm.
going through puberty. He's going through breakups. He's trying to figure out his life right now. I think that's really why a lot of people like Spider-Man. as
sure,
much as
yeah.
they do.
And also kind of I mean you were saying it with Spider-Verse how it's a coming of age, and same with like Spider-Man Homecoming, that like you have half of it is the superhero, they're dealing with superheroes, but then at the same time they're dealing with school and they have to deal with their friends at school and they have to dealing with the bullies at school, and like so it's not just the superhero part of it. It also has the relatable like teenage life part of it as well.
School, new environments, things like that.
Yeah.
Like what you want versus what your parents want.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of finding yourself, all those things.
Yeah. Let's talk about the freaking animation. Oscar-winning animation. Amazing, beautiful.
I was just reading about how they animated Miles at like 12 frames per second, and then they just kind of beefed him up to the 24
Yes.
throughout the whole movie, which I think is really cool.
I love the art in this film. It is a comic book illustration. I was rewatching it and you can see when you're watching it on the big screen, you can see it as well. But having like a computer like a few feet away from you, you can see the crosshatch. Like they're shaded with crosshatching, which is how they shade comic books, and it's just so beautiful.
Oh yes, it's so pretty.
And also, just watching it you feel like you're reading a comic book just in the framing and the way that it's animated, and you've got text and you've got you can almost the way they like overlay different. I'm thinking of like the big fight in Aunt May's house, and you have like all the bad guys and then Aunt May in the middle. I'm like, you can just see this as a comic book. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like either the only movie or one of the only movies that's actually really represented an actual comic book. Like you can look at a frame from it and be like, this is a comic book frame, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an argument that you could make for the Hulk movie with Eric Bana, but I don't think anybody wants to talk about it enough to pretend to make that argument.
Yeah, I would only disagree with that because that movie does it more with its editing style, I would say, whereas Spider-Verse is more just built around the whole thing.
It's literally drawn. It's comic book art, It's
well, like instead of doing subtitles like they had them, but like for Scorpion when he speaks in Spanish, they give him a bubble translating it instead of like on the bottom.
Beautiful.
Just sort of adds to it.
Yeah, they have. Oh, you know what movie I think I was comparing it to was maybe. Oh, it was Scott Pilgrim. I compared Scott Pilgrim to the Scott Pilgrim graphic novels in the same way, in the same vein. That film was made to be the graphic, represent the graphic novels, and it looks like you're watching a comic book. But again, it's a live action, so it's a lot of the editing and the framing, and they do animation in that one, to make the text and all these things. But no, yeah, for sure, I think Spider-Verse is one of the few that just takes that art style. Yeah,
but I feel like you can't, without editing in a live action movie, you can't really do what they do in Spider-Verse.
Right.
Without all that editing. So I feel like Scott Pilgrim would probably be like right next to Spider-Verse in terms of looking like a comic book on screen.
Yeah. Yeah. And Scott Pilgrim does use some of the art from the graphic novels, which does it. But
wait, was Scott Pilgrim a comic book and then a video game, or the opposite? Because I know
was never a video game.
No. Comic book, film, video game. They made an 8-bit video game after the movie came out, and they're remastering it, and it looks beautiful.
Oh well, actually, I was reading about this. The comic book was not actually done at the same time. It was not finished when the movie came out, so they kind of like released and worked in tandem to do the whole thing. But I hadn't read the Scott Pilgrim books before watching the movie, and it's actually really close. But that's another podcast. We're here to talk about Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, but going back to like the animation, I really, really like just the overall animation itself. I think is really beautiful. It does, really look like a comic book. They have the halftone, like you were saying, Kendall. It has, if you look closely, there's dots that they use for shape or to simulate shading like in a real comic book, but also looking more specifically at like each of the individual spider characters. They all have their
Yeah,
own unique animation style to themselves.
as if they're from different comic books, yeah, because
Yeah, like the one
across
that
the
really
different,
sticks out to me is like Penny Parker, because she's
yeah,
supposed to look
yeah,
like an anime character.
it's very, yeah, it's very manga like
And it'd be really
anime.
easy to just not do that, but what I kind of wanted to also bring up with the animation is just like their attention to detail with everything. Like you were saying with the different animation styles, but also like um, when Miles Venom strikes Peter B the first time, and you see the nervous system instead of like the
Yeah,
classic skeleton.
it's
Um,
so detailed.
the healing factor on Peter Parker when he like
Mhm.
their after he drags him through the cemetery and stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
and then just John Mulaney.
John
That's it.
Mulaney, he was
That's the whole
so
thing.
good in that movie. Did you guys see that video of him like talking about when he went in for his initial reading for the film?
No.
No,
He
what
didn't
happened?
he didn't know it was for like a children's movie. I don't think he even actually knew it was for Spider Ham. And so he reads it off, and I can't remember exactly what it is. I have to look up
Okay, but is this a
video.
real thing or is this
No, this is a
is
real
this a
thing.
bit?
He was
It's a
on
real thing.
he was on like a radio show, and he was talking about how this happened. And so he goes to do his like not recording. What am I trying to say?
Audition?
Yeah, thank you. His audition, and he just starts cursing like crazy, unknowing that it's supposed to be for Spider Ham. And then afterwards, when they told him, he was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah,
You got a
definitely
problem with
something to look up.
cartoons?
Yeah, I looked that up and watched it. There's so much to rave about this movie, but what are some things you didn't like about it?
Character design was sort of the
You
more.
didn't like the character design?
I didn't like the villain character design. On the whole, I liked it, but like
some of the villains, yeah. I don't know.
like
It's really interesting.
Kingpin. I mean, I understand what they're going for. I just would have liked maybe a tiny bit better proportions. Like his head isn't like so small. Like it being a huge head wouldn't make a lot of sense either. But
I think that's kind of
he's
what
just a
they're
freaking
trying
giant.
to go with, though.
I know,
They're
like
trying
I
to
get
say,
what they're trying to go with. I still don't like it.
well, that's fair.
I mean, this isn't a big rant of mine, but I wish they had maybe chosen some new villains. Like they use Kingpin and Dr. Ock and Green Goblin is there at the beginning. And it's like these are all the ones that everyone knows, so it's understandable because if you don't read the comics, and they introduce someone new, you'd be like, who the fuck? But I really want to see like Chameleon in a Spider-Man movie, and Kraven the Hunter would be awesome. They played at Sinister Six for Amazing Spider-Man, but we never got them. But I want to see the Sinister Six.
I saw this thing going around that they might. It's probably one of those BS things, but if they do a live action Spider-Verse thing, it would be like a time traveling Kraven, not a time traveling, like a dimension hopping Kraven trying to kill all the Spider-Men type thing.
Yeah, well, I know that because they initially did when they were making Spider-Verse, they were like, "Oh, we should do a live action Spider-Verse" because I know they wanted to get previous actors incarnations of Spider-Man to all be together. But then, I don't remember what it was, some studio stuff. But then also they were just like, but let's just bring Miles Morales. Like,
that's better.
We've all seen Peter Parker 50 million times.
Yeah. Well, we do know in the MCU at least that Miles is there. We do know that.
Thanks, Donald.
Well, and they have started to play with the whole multiverse thing by bringing back James, and they're planning to bring back Jamie Foxx. But I was watching a thing where it's not the Electro from Amazing Spider-Man. It's multiverse Electro. So it's Electro and it's Jamie Foxx, but he has basically a different origin from
Which I think is cool because, like,
Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man,
I
which
like
I think
Jamie
is great.
Foxx as
Yeah,
Electro. I just don't think that was a good version of it. But I think like Jamie Foxx as Electro is a great
yeah.
idea.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
I hope for Jamie Foxx when they bring him in. I hope they kind of do. I don't, Kendall. I know you started playing it, but I don't know if you played the game, Gavin. But like when they introduce Electro, they kind of like modernize him and give him this kind of like electric bolt singe on his face.
Yeah, in the Spider-Man
Instead of
game, right?
instead of
Yeah.
doing like the classic like
Mhm.
lightning star on his
Yeah,
mask,
I
they
mean, it
just
all
put it
just
on his face.
depends his origin, how they decide
Mhm.
they decide to do that. So
Yeah, I hope they don't go with what he was in Amazing Spider-Man
yeah,
because
Well, they for sure
they
said he's
shouldn't
not
be.
blue,
well,
so
that's
that's a
true.
step in
So
the
I
right
think
direction.
that's a good
Yeah.
point.
But yeah, no, but it should be different because it's like that. I know people were complaining about with uh, Jameson that they're like, wait, but this doesn't make sense compared to Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and then they're like, yeah, well, it's
not
him,
that J.
but
Jonah.
it's a different J. Jonah because it's a multiverse and he's in a future world where it's not the 90s anymore. It's
Yeah.
like,
And I think that was a smart move when they did Jameson in the Tom Holland movie. Is like he's not a newspaper guy; he's more of an angry news dude, which I think also is like
advancing with the
props.
technology of
was-
the times.
And that was a great cameo. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's awesome. I
Like,
think
Kendall, you were
I think they're
there
bringing
with
him
me.
back.
You saw me
'cause
freaking out.
We saw. Well, I had seen it already. I saw it back home, but then for my 21st birthday, we all went to see it because a lot of you hadn't seen it.
hmm
That's when it was. But I'm pretty sure they're bringing him back for the third one.
That's what I've heard.
I hope so. I know Doctor Strange is going to be in the third
I'll
one.
be
So that's
honest.
why people are
I
thinking
really
about
don't
the
want a
multiverse.
multiverse movie though, because
No,
I feel like the problem with the
yeah.
Spider-Man movies and the MCU, as much as I like Tom Holland, and I feel like Michael Keaton and Jake Gyllenhaal did like a really good job, I feel like they're like half Spider-Man movies. Like he doesn't get to do his own thing. He has to be paired with an Avenger.
Yeah.
Like he can't just go.
Which is fine because I mean I do like in some of the original early Spider-Man comics, he does have a lot of interactions with like Iron Man and the Fantastic Four, and they're always like just there, and he's always like, I'm trying to do my thing. Can you guys not do your thing while I'm doing my thing? And so it's kind of fun to have those other connections, but also I totally agree. Like Far From Home is more an Avengers movie than a Spider-Man movie.
It's just he doesn't like if it was like he's trying to do something and then like Iron Man is swooping in and saving the day instead of him. I get that as a cameo, but it's like he's reliant on the other Avengers or Nick Fury or Doctor Strange in this case, unless it is like a sort of blunder, I guess. I don't know. I guess I'll wait to see it. I'll reserve my judgment, but that's sort of feel like the big problem with the last two is like Tom Holland doesn't really get to do much Spider-Maning without anybody else's help.
See, but I think that's what they're trying to do is they're trying to really push the idea that he's a kid, and so as the older he gets, the more freedom he's gonna get. So like the first one, he's just his hands being held the whole time by Iron Man until he goes and does his own thing. And then same with Far From Home, like Nick Fury's there holding his hand until he says, "All right, you're wrong. I'm gonna go do my own thing and save the day."
I did see a theory that like Doctor Strange was gonna fix the Peter Parker name reveal, which I just think is kind of BS, but maybe that's just me.
Oh, okay, I remember. Also, at the same time, they started making these new iterations right when the Sony Disney buying deal thing was happening. And so I'm pretty sure they had to keep him with the Avengers because of a Disney MCU thing. And then once the Sony thing runs out, they have like another year or two, then they can kind of take Spider-Man more individually. But I know like it was like Sony had rights to the character name thing, but then Disney had rights to him if he was involved in the MCU and Avengers. And so it was a messy thing because they brought him in originally with Civil War.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we can do this because he's part of the... And then, so I know that was some of it, but I think Well,
sure we'll
because they're
find out at the end
already
of Spider-Man 3.
filming. They're already filming or starting to film or whatever 3, and so it might not even. I don't know. It might not apply yet. I know there's like 1 or 2 more years before this whole deal is
Whatever.
restarted. Who knows? Fucking Disney.
Whatever.
How do you, Jordan? How do you see Spider-Verse in like what do you think its place is within all of the other Spider-Man films within the MCU
Pantheon of
or
Spider.
within, especially since it's animated versus all
What do
these
you
live
mean?
actions we've
Like,
gotten?
how do I compare it? Like, is it better than all the others, or what do you mean exactly?
No, but like, we have like the Spider-Man animated TV show, but then we have the Spider-Man MCU, and then
Tobey
Spider-Verse is
Maguire, Andrew
Spider-Verse is
Garfield.
Disney, right? Yeah, it is
No,
Marvel, so it's like
it's
It's
Sony.
Sony. Well, Spider-Verse is Sony.
okay. See, and that's where it gets complicated. So like how do you do you think it'll be affected by the other Spider-Man films or how other Spider-Man films
I
will
think
be
in a little
influenced
bit,
or
yeah. Like we've been saying, the MCU, it kind of seems like they're leaning towards doing a live action Spider-Verse, and I think in part it's because Spider-Verse was so successful. I mean, I feel like
Mhm.
they probably would have done it eventually anyway if they do end up doing it, but it was kind of like, all right, Spider-Verse can work. We can
Right.
put all the characters on screen and we can give them their own flavor and it can still all work together. So I feel like that's kind of what Marvel is thinking right now, even though, like I said, they probably would have ended up doing it anyway, with everybody who's been saying for years, like,
Yeah.
bring Toby back, bring Andrew back, bring
It'll
it
be funny
together.
and great.
But in terms of kind of where it sits, I would put it above a lot of the Spider-Man, at least the animated Spider-Man things that have come out over the years. I
Mhm.
personally, for myself, I would put the 90s Spider-Man animated series above all of it. It's just
Mhm.
because that holds a very near and dear
Classic.
place to
It's
my
just a
heart.
classic.
Oh yeah, but I would definitely put Spider-Verse pretty up there with it. It's definitely something that I think a lot of people, specifically filmmakers, are gonna look at for years to come. It's got such an unique animation style. Like I just looked it
Mhm.
up. I think it took them about a year, 2 years to develop just the style of the whole film. I could
Yeah.
definitely see, people taking animation classes, like studying this and being like, why was this so different and unique compared to DreamWorks and Pixar, who do things very similar to each other. Granted, both those teams, they have their own flavor as well, but putting them side by side, they do look very similar to each
Mhm.
other.
Do you think we'll start to see more of these comic films, like whether or not they make a sequel, or but more if they would just take another superhero or another story and
I don't
kind of
know.
adapt the style?
I mean, it's Sony and it's a corporate company. Everybody likes money. That's just how everything works. I do know they are making a sequel. I think they've even said something about possibly making a spin-offs with either one or a couple of the characters from
I I
Spider-Verse.
could see like Gwen. They took
Mhm.
Gwen.
Yeah, but in terms of Sony, I don't know if they're gonna do anything because I I think they own a either one or two more Marvel's characters, but I don't think they would do anything with Batman. It just wouldn't
Yeah,
work. I don't think they would do anything with Superman. I just don't see this really working as well with other
with other.
characters.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like Spider-Man's a really specific character that it works well with, just because of like how his character's been, because he's like kind of funny and quippy and sort of.
Well, but then also just with Miles himself, it fits his both his heritage and his cultural upbringing, but as well as just living in New York City. It kind of has that like art style and then just his character as a young kid.
Hmm.
And it's just like, uh, again, it's just a character thing, because like Batman, Iron Man, Superman, all these guys, they don't really have that same like tone or characterization. You know what? Actually, thinking about it now, a Green Lantern movie in a similar style could work like that. I think.
I'd be okay with that. They did have that Green Lantern series on Cartoon Network a few years ago. That
Mm-hmm.
was
And they're
3D
doing
animation.
Green Lantern Core. I think it's a show on
Ooh,
HBO.
Yeah, it is.
It's a show or
yeah,
movie.
I would love to see, yeah, if they did like a villain series in a sort of Gotham-esque way, but if it was animated like this,
That could maybe work.
I would
Just Batman
watch
doesn't
that.
work because he's just not one note, but
Well,
he's very one tone.
with Spider-Man villains, yeah,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
Spider-Man villains, yeah. I think, yeah, I'm interested. I'm not like against a sequel, and I'm interested in it as long as they continue to play with the Miles Morales comic stories, and continue bringing a new audience into these comic stories, um, because you don't know them unless you read them, but they can kind of bring it out and bring that representation and variety. It's not. I love the movie because it's Spider-Man, but it's not necessarily Peter Parker Spider-Man, but it's still a Spider-Man story. But it's, I don't know.
I mean, my biggest problem with any sequel to this movie was I don't want any old characters. Like, I don't want, like, Noir or Penny or maybe Gwen would be, like, the only one I could see
Yeah,
coming
I
back. And,
feel like she
like,
has to
Mm.
come
she's
back.
the only one that I'd be okay with coming back, but, like, no Peter B. None
Yeah,
of those guys. Just because I feel like their stories are kind of done. And they, like, especially with, like, Noir, Penny, and Spider Ham, they
yeah,
didn't have a huge part in like story arc, so there's no real reason to bring them back. I feel like Peter B's story was like finished off really well, and bringing him back is just going to be kind
yeah.
of
Do you
pointless.
think a sequel is going to be multiverse based, or is it going to be like Miles Morales based? Are we just
No,
gonna?
I think it'll be multiverse based because, like, at the end, we get that end scene with Miguel O'Hara, the
Oh,
Spider-Man of 2099, where he's
Mm-hmm.
going to the other universes. What was it? He dropped into like the 1960s Spider-Man,
yeah,
Yeah,
and we get that he basically recreates the meme that everybody's seen for.
yeah.
Oh god.
which I feel like that's fine. Like I'm not opposed to a multiverse story with like 2099, and then he goes and finds Miles, and they bring in Gwen,
Mm,
and then maybe like a couple different Spider people. Um, like I'm okay with that. I just don't want to see these older characters, mostly because we've seen them. Then you worry about falling into a story rut. I
yeah.
feel like those are just some of the pitfalls with having those types of people. And then I kind of worry about like how they do the stakes and character development because I feel like Miles has a
Yes.
lot of character development in this, and so like how are they going to improve his development while also keeping the stakes like high?
hmm
I don't know.
See,
That's
Yeah.
sort of where I fall
I
with it.
hope they don't like try and do it too big. They're like, okay, the first one, we got it. Let's go bigger. Let's get like it's not just the multiverse. It's like I don't know. Well, okay, it would be the multiverse, but like they make it sound like it's a lot worse than it was in the first one. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like I'm phrasing this really poorly, but I just hope they don't go too big because the first one felt a lot tighter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Going bigger and improving without like sort of jumping the shark and blowing up your whole world.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you
It's
feel? Oh,
no,
no.
go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna change
That's fine.
the
I
subject.
was gonna
Okay.
start talking about Deadpool for a second.
We can talk
I mean,
about
that's,
Deadpool for
yeah.
a
Go
second
for
here.
it. Go for it.
I was just gonna say because Deadpool one I feel like is a great film, and I think most people would
Hmm.
agree with me. Deadpool
Hmm.
two, although it's not as good as the first one, I still feel like they did it right because they didn't go too big. They kept it pretty tight. Like they expanded and were like, all right, this one was successful. Maybe now we have some more money. We can go a little bigger. We can do more, but they still wanted to keep it tight.
Right.
Hmm.
And you have those great little moments of, like all the X-Men in the background without actually bringing the X-Men into
Hmm
into the story.
And I feel like the problem with any sort of novel type of movie, like a new movie, like Spider Verse, Deadpool, like Deadpool, the first R rated movie with all the swearing and stuff, is any sequel you make is not going to live up to it because you lose the novelty of it.
Hmm.
So, like, the next Spider Verse movie will still probably look just as pretty, and it could be in every way just as good as this, but it's always going to be a little less because you've already seen
Because
it.
it's always the sequel, yeah. And that's also, I mean, Gavin and I have gotten into this before, but like, at what point can we stop making sequels? But again, sequels are always from studios because they like money and blah 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 blah. It's a trap, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it just depends on why you're making a sequel. Like they set up the sequel
Yeah.
at the end of this movie,
Mhm.
so like they
Versus,
clearly
like,
at least
yeah.
have an idea of where they want to go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Versus
what
like
I'm hoping.
creating a movie with the intent of this movie is going to have 3 movies
Yes,
is
that's
after
exactly
it, you know?
what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Because I would rather them, because obviously the first one, it really felt kind of like a passion project. Whether that's true or
Mhm.
not, I have no proof to back that up.
There's
But
nothing wrong with a passion project.
yeah, it really
It can
felt
turn
like
out beautiful.
yes, but I'm saying it felt like the team really put in everything. They really believed in the project. They believed in the story. They wanted to do something really truly unique and special. And I'm hoping that the sequel isn't just like the studio saying, "This looks great. Plan for a sequel." And then
Right.
start the sequel right now and just don't even put effort into it. Just do it. Make us more money.
Yeah.
I'm
And
hoping that
unfortunately, that's how a lot of them go. But yeah, we can hope
yes,
we can
I'm
hope
just
the creators and the original artists will kind of keep some of the integrity and original concept to it.
Yeah,
We can hope.
but like you see that with movies like The Quiet Place, like the sequel for that. Like, yeah, they end it in a way that like you can kind of see a sequel coming, but also like, did you really need it though?
Right. Right.
Or like Jaws is probably the biggest example of like, did we really need a sequel to that?
no, we did
And
not.
it sort of like revolutionized the making of sequels because it made so much money that they kept
Right.
making them. Though looking at some old movies, it's not a new trend because there's like 10 Frankensteins, a bunch of Draculas,
But that's also
a bunch of
just
Invisible Men.
it's kind of the
Like,
way with like there's always there's like 15 different Sherlock Holmes varieties because everyone just kind of wants to see these different varieties and everyone has a different take on these original stories. So,
well, I think
but
that's a little bit different. I mean, like, I see what you're saying, like rebooting and revamping characters
but then
is
yeah, you
another
get
thing that happens a lot. But like, I feel like it's different in a way because they're at
like
least
Son
trying
of
to.
Frankenstein and
Right. Well,
Frankenstein's
because
wife.
like when you reboot Sherlock, you're trying to do something interesting. Like you're
Mhm.
trying to bring a new take to the character. Whereas like sequels that are unnecessary, like Jaws 2, they're like, we're just trying to make money right
Gremlins.
Yes.
now.
Back to Spider-Man and Spider-Verse. Jordan, what are your thoughts on bringing Miles Morales into MCU? Or I know a lot of people want to see Miles Morales cast live action. Are you in agreement or are
Oh
you
yes. 100%.
Yeah.
I think that should be a thing. My concern is when Far From Home and Homecoming came out, I don't know why, but I was kind of under the impression that like they were gonna introduce Tom Holland to just kind of get people acquainted, and then they were gonna kill him off,
Mm.
like they do in the Ultimate Comics and even in Into the
Well, he can
Spider-Verse.
only stay young for so long.
Yes, but that was my concern because, it was as much as I wanted to see Miles on the big screen right then and there, it was like I kind of wanted to get more acquainted with this universe's version of
Mhm.
Peter Parker before we get Miles Morales.
Yeah.
I do think they are going to do that at some point, whether they kill him off or they just integrate Miles as well. And like, all right, we got 2 Spider-Man movies now. And then once in a while, it's like, all right, we get a team up with the 2 of them in a movie together. You
Mhm.
know, whichever route they go, I'm totally for it. I would love to see Miles Morales in the MCU as Spider-Man.
And I think it just adds a whole nother level of representation and variety and continuing the comic book arc into the MCU and all the connections and character.
I
Well,
think if they
Yeah.
brought Miles in, it'd be very much like what Black Panther did.
mhm.
Black Panther
It
was
would
a
be so
really good
cool.
representation of Black culture, and I feel like if they brought Miles in and they gave him like the love and care that they gave Spider-Verse, it'd be a really good representation of who he is. Because Miles grows up in this, I think it was the south side or the east side of Harlem, which is
Mhm.
notorious for not being a very good area. So I feel like
Yeah.
they could really represent him and where he comes from.
It and as well like just the difference between Peter Parker's growing up in New York versus Miles' experience in New York and even just all of the Avengers, in the same area.
Well, there's a couple things. So, like, one, we know he's already in the universe because of Donald Glover's cameo in Homecoming, which I'm glad they had Donald Glover because who doesn't love a little Donald Glover? Who I hope they bring back as Prowler, which I
Mm,
think that's like the big hope. But I feel like I'm not, since we are not a part of Sony or Disney, we don't know the full extent of their deal with like Tom
right.
Holland and how many movies he can be in. But like, if depending on how that works out, I think they might just like kill him off, kind of like Jordan was saying, and then sort of bring in Miles. Maybe
It would,
that'll be in the third
yeah.
one.
It would. I feel like it's a little early for the. I don't know, but but then it's also because I'm in that way of like I want to see more Spider. I want to see more Tom Holland Spider-Man doing just Spider-Man versus doing the
Hmm.
Avenger Spider-Man thing. But also, I would love to see Miles if they could cast it in a way that they cast Tom Holland, in that it's a face that you don't know,
Hmm.
completely new to the universe, completely new to the franchise, and then bringing it would just be really cool to do it that way. Compared to like I know like various people like, oh, this person would be so good as Miles Morales, or would be awesome. But then it's also like, or
Find
we
someone we've
could,
never seen.
yeah, we could bring in some new awesome amazing young talent.
See, it's funny you talk about disappointment with casting somebody because a lot of people were actually disappointed when Donald Glover was cast as
Mm.
basically the Prowler in the MCU because Donald Glover was the inspiration for Miles
Yeah,
Morales.
yeah.
Hmm.
He said
Him and
he
Barack
wanted,
Obama.
yeah, yes, because Donald Glover, he said I want to play Spider-Man,
Hmm.
and then Marvel was like, okay, so they made Miles Morales based on him,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah, but I'm
yeah,
glad they didn't make him Miles Morales
yes,
because
he's
he's older.
Not gonna work.
far too old.
Honestly, if they just made a Donald Glover as any Spider-Man, they were like, "You can play Spider-Man for this movie," I'd be down. Pretty much anytime Donald Glover does something, I'm like, I'll watch that.
I'm
Right,
glad
right.
they did let him voice Miles though in Ultimate Spider-Man the show.
Yeah, yeah. It's
He
cool
got his
stuff.
shot,
It's cool stuff.
and he
Well,
cameoed in Spider-Verse actually.
Hmm,
yeah, yeah.
you did?
Yeah,
Who did he
so
cameo
he.
in?
Oh, so it's like literally him. So when they first, have you ever seen Community, Jordan?
No.
Okay, so in season two, in the
Forty.
opening, there's a part where they're all like waking up, and Donald Glover's character Troy gets up, and he's wearing like Spider-Man PJs. So in the TV in the background, when Miles first goes to his uncle's apartment, if you watch the TV, you'll see that scene of Donald Glover getting up in his Spider-Man outfit.
I love that. Oh my
Love.
god.
So
Good
he's
stuff.
actually in the movie.
Huh, I'll
Good
have to look
stuff.
out for that next time.
Everyone go watch out for it. Well, we're kind of reaching the time of the end
Do
of
we have
this
any final
episode.
thoughts we want to say about Spider-Man or Miles or anything before we get ready for random topic time?
I think it's a beautiful movie. Everybody should watch. Filmmakers alike should study it and learn from it what makes it special because it's
Hmm.
not just another animated film. It's something that's really unique, really special, that is something people are going to learn from for years to come.
Oh, for sure. It'll be in film schools for
For sure.
the next 50 years. Required the new Citizen Kane.
I'd be okay with that.
I feel like we need new Citizen Kane. Should we reboot Citizen Kane, guys?
I mean, I've never seen Citizen Kane, so.
You haven't had to watch it yet? Who are your
No.
teachers?
Oh, actually, no, I did. Melissa made us watch it, but I ended
I
up
was gonna
not watching
say.
it.
If you
Melissa,
do
if you're
watch it,
listening, I'm sorry.
I recommend watching it a second time. If you watch
Yeah,
it once, watch it again.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jordan, we end our episodes playing random topic time. I don't know if I ever had you fill out these sticky notes, but like 2 years ago, I was walking
did.
around with a
I filled
jar
out
and a bunch
one
of
or
sticky.
two.
Yeah. So we have them all here in a shoebox.
Oh,
and
I
it
hope
is time.
you accidentally get mine.
I
I don't
We
remember.
didn't get Jack's when we had Jack on, so
I don't. Do they
somehow.
have people's names on them?
No, it's just
Okay, then
handwriting.
I really won't know if it's mine then.
I mean, it's been so long since these were made.
They're even more
Alrighty.
random now.
I know. Alrighty.
Reminder:
You
get
have-
toothpaste.
Honestly, no. This one just says secret talents.
Secret talents.
So, like,
Yep.
I'm assuming it means, do we
Know
have a
all,
secret
tell all.
talent?
And
Should we
now it will
just
no longer
answer
be
that as-
secret.
Should we just answer that as a yes or no, but like not say what our secret
No, you
talent
have to
is?
say what the secret talent is. You
I
can't
don't
just
have a
leave us
secret
hanging.
talent. I
don't
can
know.
make any
I don't think
situation
there
way
is.
more negative. Is that a talent, or is that just me being a jerk?
I don't
I
know.
think
I'm
it's
like
just you being an asshole.
double
Fair enough.
jointed. I don't know. I have double jointed thumbs. It's
I
not
don't think-
really.
I don't know if you call that a
secret
talent.
or
That's
a
just more
talent.
like a weird body thing.
Yep, gross and weird. I don't know. Secret talents. What counts? What really is a talent?
I can juggle. I know magic tricks.
Yeah.
Not
I
as
can do
many
some of
tricks
those
as
too.
I used to, but I still know some magic tricks. Enough to impress my girlfriend.
That's all you need. That's the important one. Yeah. I don't know.
I have a pretty good working knowledge of most like actors and things they've been in, at least the popular ones.
Is that a
whenever I'm
talent,
watching-
Gavin?
I mean, I
kidding.
spent a lot of time working on it. Every time I watch stuff, I see a face I recognize, I remember their name, and then I remember other stuff they've been in because it always bugs me. So we can call it a talent. It's the only thing.
I would
The
say
only
so.
other thing I have it as a talent.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not really good at anything else. I probably can't play the cello anymore, and I probably also can't play the saxophone anymore.
I don't know. I'm gonna choose another one, another topic. Okay. What is this?
We're gonna
What
need
is
to make
your-
more of these.
No, we don't. We have so many, Gavin,
I know, but if we keep doing a bunch, we'll need to make more.
for variety.
How many do
Yeah.
you guys do?
Usually one, but sometimes
Yeah,
two or three.
one or two.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends if they're good or also with guests. We like to. I don't know. What is your biggest pet peeve?
I have so many pet peeves.
Mine, I don't like cracking knuckles because it's like the nail on chalkboard thing for me, and don't do it.
Have you been hearing me cracking my knuckles? Because I've been doing that this
No.
whole time.
No. It literally, I don't know. It's usually fine, but usually when I say that to people, then they have to crack their knuckles, and I'm just like, fucking.
Well, yeah. People like
Asshole.
to torture others.
I know. I don't know. I just, especially if it's, I mean, if it's like a really loud one, it's just, I don't know, nail on chalkboard. But like, I can stand nails on chalkboard. I can't
I
stand
can't.
knuckles cracking. It's, I don't know.
In day-to-day life, I hate people who walk slow.
My God.
That's probably my big one.
Oh my God.
Setting, I hate having to constantly tell people to do stuff.
If they're like
It's the
not doing
worst.
their job.
I hate saying something, and then they don't do it, and then I have to say it again, and then again, and then I have to yell at them. That part I like.
Yeah,
So
when
if
you're
you
thinking
ever
like a
have
real
Gavin as a
producer.
manager or a producer, make sure you're doing your goddamn job.
Yep.
Yeah.
I say that, but then I'm also like a super big procrastinator, and I don't do stuff right away.
I feel that. I got a lot of producing work to do still too.
You want some help? I have.
Oh God, I would actually love you if you helped me with that.
Yeah, send some stuff your way, and I can feel like I'm being useful. And I
Is
don't
this
just
for-
sit around watching cartoons and eating junk food all day and getting fat again.
I mean,
Is this
it's not.
for
It's,
for corporate?
yes, it's not that like it's necessarily hard stuff. It's more like once in a while I have a question, or it just kind of starts piling up with a lot that's going on right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, shoot a message my way. I'll help you out.
I think I
What's
will.
your pet peeve then, Jordan?
My
other
pet
than-
peeve? Okay.
Other than
I-
production homework.
Yes.
It's not a pet peeve, it's more of an annoyance.
It bothers me so much when people will like take my stuff or borrow my stuff, even if I say like it's fine, and then they'll put it back and it's not the way I had it before. It will actually bother me like crazy because I'm the type of person, if somebody says I can borrow their stuff, I'm like, okay, cool. And then I put it back exactly
Leave it
as
how
I
you
had
found it.
Exactly. And when people don't do that with me, oh, it drives me insane.
Actually, you know what? I know my biggest pet peeve. When I'm doing something and someone will offer to help me, but they don't help me the way that I do it, and then I get annoyed. but I have to not be mad at them because I didn't specify. So it's like, I need you to do this. You're doing it wrong. Well, you're not doing it wrong, but it's not my way, so it's wrong.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, we should probably end it there. Thank you, Jordan, for coming and joining us.
Yes, much appreciated.
You.
We'll for sure bring you back when we talk about Batman or something else.
Oh, we have so many comic book and superhero things on our list. You're not restricted to those topics, but
that's fine. I just did an analysis on the Dark Knight, so
yes.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. Well,
goodbye.
Have a good rest of your week.
Thank
you.
Keep yourself entertained. Watch some films. Do your homework. Don't procrastinate.
Do your homework.
I'll do it at some point.
There you go. That's the attitude.